On this episode of our Axis and Allies Global 1940 Second Edition tutorial series, we're going to go over the order of play. So this is effectively everything you do on your turn. You don't necessarily have to do all these things. And some of these phases are a lot shorter than others. So we're going to go in and break them all down. The first thing you do is you purchase and repair units. So you'll have some money to start the game off. You'll be able to buy some stuff. So whatever you want, or nothing. You don't have to buy any units if you don't want them. On turn one, you won't have anything to repair, but later in the game, the things that it talks about repairing and purchasing are your repairs apply to your facilities, so your minor and major industrial complexes, your air and naval bases, as well as any damaged carriers or damaged battleships that are in sea zones with a naval base. You'll get to flip them over. Those don't cost anything. All the damage on your facilities costs 1 IPC per point of damage you remove. And that's the entirety of that phase. So any units you build, you'll set them in the mobilization zone. So after you decide what you want to build, you'll stick them down there, and they won't come into play until later. The next thing is combat moves. So for this, you're going to set out every single battle and every single unit you're going to take into them. You don't have to make any battles if you don't want to. But all of these you'll set off the board, and typically you'll have your battle strip with your attackers and defenders, and you can organize it however you wish. But this is just setting out your battles. Then, after that, you'll conduct combat. So that's just rolling all your dice, deciding whether you're going to continue attacking or retreating. Only the attacker can retreat. The defender, you're just stuck there. Now, after that, it's your non-combat movements. So that's anything where you're moving inside of your own territory or friendly territory. Or anything that's not a hostile territory, effectively. So even if it's an enemy territory that has no units in it, you can't move there. That would be a combat move. So you have to do that during the combat movement phase. Next is mobilize new units. So your units you purchased earlier, you're going to be able to place them down on the relevant industrial complexes you may have. And after that, you'll collect your income. Now, for collecting your income, there's this, frankly, ridiculous formula they have here in the back. You have this freaking chart here where you got to go all through all this ridiculousness. I mean, if this helps you do it, awesome, but I really wouldn't worry about it. First, you look at where you're at on the IPC tracker. Then I go and I subtract any losses I'll have from convoys. And then after that, I'll see what national objectives I qualify for. And then bada bing, bada boom, Bob's your uncle. You have your IPCs. The only way you can lose your IPCs after you have them is either through convoy disruptions, or if you happen to lose your capital, you'll lose all your money. You'll have to give it to whoever took your capital. But yeah, that's the basic order of play for Axis and Allies Global 1940 Second Edition. We're just going to go through a couple of other things while I'm here, since this video is rather short already. We're going to talk about, I guess we may as well talk about some of the components and the setup and stuff. Odds are, if you just happen to Google this, you already know, but anyway. So, we got these plastic chips here. There's 3 of them. Now, I have 6, but they're just different sizes. You have a gray one, a green one, and a red one. All these are placeholders. Gray is 1, green is 3, red is 5. And then your guy on top counts as an extra one. So like, if you have a guy on a chip, that's 2 guys. Here, 3 plus 1, that's 4. Here, 5 plus 1 is 6. And then they stack together. So if you have all 3 of them stacked together with a guy on top, that's 10. You'll also typically use these to mark damage on your facilities. You stick them under there like that. I have white chips for that, but that will not be coming in your copy of the game if you buy it. Next, you'll have facilities. Again, you won't have these. They will look very similar to these. They will be small counters with a factory on them, with a 3 and 10. These are your air bases and your naval bases, and those two I described, those are your major and minor industrial complexes. You'll have a handful of dice, not anywhere near enough. I recommend getting more dice. Lots of dice rolling in this game. Every nation has their own one of these. These are called national control markers, or some people call them roundels. You use these to designate control of territories. So, let's say the Soviet Union moves into a territory it doesn't own at the beginning of the game. You plop that down to show that you own it now. As I said, every nation has their own. You use these to track your IPC values on this little IPC tracker here. You'll also use them for just any other recognition stuff. So if you're playing with paper money, you can use it for that. Or if you're playing with technology and development, you use them on that chart there. You can also use them to mark turn order off the board, etc., etc. These are unique to Japan. These are kamikaze tokens. You only get 6 of them. And effectively, you get to make a targeted dice roll on a ship of your choice in certain zones. So these are very similar to the convoy zones. They're marked the same, but Japan can choose to spend those if they wish. You only get 6. Once you use them, they're gone. So use them wisely. I think they hit on a 1, but I'm not entirely certain. I'd have to look that up, but they're not game breaking, but they can give you an edge. I think that's all the basic components that come in the game. Of course, you're gonna, you have your game board and stuff, but I think you know what that is. And the last thing I think we're going to talk about, well, I guess the last 2 things we're going to talk about are how you win the game, and then some of the global rules, some of the differences between the 2 games. Because if you didn't know, these 2 boards are their own board game, and these 2 boards are their own board game. The beautiful thing is you can put them together, but you don't have to play with them together. You can play with them separately if you wish. There really aren't that many differences. Pretty much everything in this series will still apply to Europe or Pacific 1940. I really love playing global. I think it just adds more scale, and I don't know, it makes it feel better, in my opinion. But moving on. How do you win the game? As the Allies, you have a pretty clear victory condition. You have to control Berlin, Rome, and Tokyo for 1 full turn. So you have to have all 3 of those under your control for 1 full turn. For the Axis to win, you have to have control of either 8 victory cities on the Europe half of the board. Victory cities are all these little red ones. So it includes like the capitals, but it also includes these little ones with the circles. So like Warsaw, Cairo, Stalingrad. You have to control 8 over here to win, and you win for the whole deal. Or in the Pacific, if you control 6 victory cities. So over here it's like Shanghai, Manila, Honolulu, Sydney way down there. Yeah, I really don't like the victory conditions in this game. I typically play to surrender. Eventually, once you get to a certain point, you'll kind of see where the wind is going to blow, and one side will just give up. Sometimes you might just have that group of people that are playing as the Axis, and they'll never surrender. They'll fight to the bitter end. And that's kind of frustrating, because this game is very long. This could easily be an all-day game. This is an event. Even more so if you're playing with new people, or if you're playing with people that have analysis paralysis, this game can take absolute ages to play. So, instituting some other kind of victory conditions, I'd really recommend it. I know, I think Young Grasshopper has put on a series of something to do with some kind of victory condition or victory point system. I haven't looked too much into it, but I think a lot of people really like that. But I much prefer just playing to surrender. But yeah, that's how you win the game. I do recommend altering it. At least if you're playing global. If you're playing like one of the theater games, you're just playing Europe, maybe you could probably just leave it alone. Same thing if you're just playing Pacific, maybe you can just, yeah, it's probably just fine. And some of the global rules, a lot of it's just like there's a couple like national objective differences. Like the United States, I think, has a couple of differences from their Pacific economy. It's nothing substantial. But the biggest thing is the Allies get a bunch of extra units. The Soviets get 18 infantry and 2 AA guns here. And the British lose 1 infantry in Egypt, and the Australians get 2. So that's neat. Everything else is not super major. Like, it goes over, like, what sea zones connect. Like, these 3 sea zones connect with these 3 sea zones here. Other than that, there's not really any major differences between Europe and Pacific and global. And one more thing I want to talk about is this here. So I know for my play group, I'm going to have to have one of the rule books open to this page the entire game, because the unit sculpts are different for each nation, which I think is awesome. But if you're not super into history and stuff, I can understand how it might be difficult to tell things apart. The ships in particular, a lot of people seem to have trouble telling the ships apart, and fair enough. So if you don't want to keep having to tell your people, oh no, that's a destroyer, or no, that's a cruiser, I recommend leaving your rulebook open to this page, or even printing out copies of it. And the sculpts are different between some of the other games. I think this game has the best sculpts, at least for a lot of units. There's some that I don't really care for, but this is a very good looking game, I think. And I do believe that is everything I want to talk about in this video.